I thought he loved me and loved our family, and I had caught him having an affair, the only affair I ever thought he had. And I guess when I went to work that night, he started telling my children that your mother's crazy. I cheated on him, apparently. So there's a lot of really significant evil there. Sorry, I said it, evil.
It is. Hi, welcome back to Prey vs. Predator. We are so excited to have a guest today, Dr. Christine Cocchiola. Dr. Christine, or Dr. C, is a coercive control advocate, educator, researcher, and survivor. She is a college professor teaching social work in the Connecticut college system for the last 20 years and is also an adjunct instructor at NYU. Her expertise is in the areas of intimate partner violence, trauma, and child abuse. So we are so excited to have you here.
So excited.
Well, thank you for having me.
You've done so much already. Huge shout out to you for your work and advocacy for survivors and for people who are dealing with this now and in the past. And we wanted to hear a little bit, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us, of your own story. What led you here? How'd you get here?
Sure. So I grew up in a really close-knit family, and I think that, like a lot of people, a lot of women maybe grew up in a family where church was important, going to church and old-fashioned values, 12 years of Catholic schooling here. And I just kind of assumed that I was going to get married and fall in love, get married, and have a family, right? That's what we all kind of assume. And I did fall in love at about the age of 16 with someone who was madly in love with me, and I really wasn't allowed to date. So that was kind of like a nice thing to have this guy give me attention, and boy, did he give me attention. So we ended up getting married, and we ended up having 2 beautiful children. And slowly I began to recognize that I teach every single semester on the power and control wheel. I'm a social work professor, and I teach on the power and control wheel every single semester. And I had this one day where it was like, aha. Now there was a lot of little, they say it's death by 1,000 cuts, psychological abuse and this coercive control, the overarching umbrella. And that's what it was. It was like there was a little red flag here, then a little one there, and a little one there. And, I have to say that had I not, I had filed for divorce twice, and had tried to leave several times. And every time it was this vacillation between begging me to come back and then saying that you're destroying our family or you'll never amount to anything. So it was this vacillation, right, of really positive to really negative. But when I did finally file the second time, the first time he convinced me to not go through with it. The second time, when I did file, and I had really made it was pretty clear to him, the post-separation abuse was so significant that it was at that time, had he not been so horrible during the post-separation, I might have still stayed with him, because it was that experience of really significant. I mean, I was being locked out of my own home. There was 8 cameras up in the house watching me whenever I was in the home before he started changing. We never locked our home. So before he started locking and took the keys. And then he always knew where I was. It was interesting. And come to find out, my car was tracked, my computer hacked. So again, had that not gotten so bad. And in the meantime, the first time that I filed, when he begged me not to divorce him, he was with the same woman the second time around about 5 years later and is still with her. So it's just very interesting. I think you guys call them predators, right? The very interesting pathology related to that. Like there's so many characterological issues that arise from people who have absolutely no ability to understand the harm they're causing other people. So that's really my story. I mean, I think that's it pretty succinctly. Of course, there's so many other aspects, including, attempting to turn my children away from me at the ages of 9 and 10, unbeknownst to me. I thought he loved me and loved our family, and I had caught him having an affair, the only affair I ever thought he had. It was not with this particular person. And I guess when I went to work that night, he started telling my children that your mother's crazy, that she's a cheater. I cheated on him apparently, and that you really shouldn't trust her. And so when you start that with children at ages 9 and 10, and then it wasn't until I left and my daughter told me at the age of 17. So there's a lot of really significant evil there. Sorry, I said it, evil.
It is.
I'm thankful to you for saying it.
Was he tracking you before you filed for divorce, or did the tracker?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So how many years had that been happening before you left?
As far back as I can recall, at least 5 years. I remember I went out with my siblings one day and we ended up going to a different restaurant, and I told him where we went, and he's like, "But why did you leave that other restaurant?" And I'm like, how did he know? Now, these are all things that you don't think about in that moment because, of course, the gaslighting is so significant, right? And, of course, who wants to believe that someone would really be doing that? But yeah, so
wow.
He kind of he checked all of the boxes, unfortunately, and then ended up the financial abuse, which we always assume is going to happen in these horrible situations. It happens to 99% of all domestic violence victims, right? Is the financial abuse. So that ensued, and 3,000 harassing, threatening emails, about 300 a month. And it took me 13 months to have him arrested because I didn't want to have him arrested. And then when I did finally bring forward the flash drive with the 3,000 harassing, threatening emails, I was actually very mistreated by the police because he was friends with all of them. And they basically accused, I walked in the door with a girlfriend who was a police officer who came with me for support. We left my car in a commuter lot because we knew he had it tracked. And the police said to me, "Oh, you're the woman who's cheated on her husband. You're the woman who's taking all of the family's money." So they accused me of exactly what he was doing. And as I always say with these predators, the accusation is the confession, right? Or the confession is the accusation, excuse me. Yes. Yes. So when they say you did something, it's actually exactly what they did. It's their playbook.
You mentioned checking boxes. Can we go through some of those boxes for our listeners and for ourselves so we know what we're looking for? Because we call these people predators. You would say it's a coercive controller or abuser. So what kind of boxes are they checking?
Sure. I mean, maybe should I unpack a little bit coercive control? So what we know now is that we used to think of domestic violence, and I personally prefer to use the word domestic abuse because it's not always physically violent. And that's what we're learning more and more, right? Is that there's so much abuse that happens when someone never even has a hand laid on them. And so what research is showing us very clearly is that there are some cases of situational violence where people, there might be physical assault. Someone can be horrifyingly harmed. It could be based on someone having a maladaptive coping. When they're angry, they lash out, or when they drink, they lash out, right? Those are all incidences of that. But really, most domestic abuse is based on someone having power over us. And in that power over us, they strip us of our autonomy. They strip away our ability to know what we should know. Dr. Evan Stark propelled the term. It came out of the Biderman Report in 1957. During the Korean War, prisoners of war would actually give in to their prison guards. And so what is it about when we are in a situation where we are stripped of everything that we know about ourselves? I mean, if you had taken me and perhaps yourselves out of that situation and you watched a friend go through that, would you have known it was wrong? Yes. But when we're in it, that abuser is consistently diminishing us as humans. It's actually, it's a crime against humanity. It really is. And Biderman called it intimate terrorism. You are so broken down that you will do whatever you can. The brain's number one job is to keep us safe. And so if safety means I should align with someone, then I'm going to do it. And so coercive control is really the umbrella term for all domestic violence, virtually all of it. There's some situational, very small amount, but most is based on one person having power over another person. And that power over is certainly manifested through psychological abuse, right? So gaslighting, intimidation, isolation, manipulation. It's manifested through financial abuse, through legal abuse. People use the legal system all the time to harm victims. I mean, we see this with sexual assault, don't we? I mean, how many times do victims actually end up being put on the stand as if they're the perpetrator? So the legal abuse, and sometimes use of the children as pawns when children are involved.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of states pushing for 50-50 custody. It makes perfect sense when there's two healthy parents. But when there's one unhealthy parent, judges are making decisions to give custody to both parents equally when one parent was an abuser. So coercive control really is the foundation of all of this. And we live in a society that, going back to my own childhood, we live like it's either cultural norms, it's certainly patriarchal norms, right? It's all of these things that make some people just more accommodating, more, it's never a victim's fault. These are Dr. Sandra Brown talks about this. Actually, I think she has a master's degree, but in any case, she talks about them as super traits. Like these are like the people in the world that make the world a good place, but predators will find them. Predators want these people.
We call them prey. And it was so interesting to us. You have a term that you coined, I believe, called perfect prey. And we thought that was really fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit as you're going in here about perfect prey?
Yeah, so I did a research study, and I did it on the intersection of subjugation and coercive control. And I haven't yet published it yet because I've been so busy just really trying to advocate as much as possible right now with legislation we're trying to get through in various states. But the idea is that these are people who go into relationships assuming the best of others. That's what we know. We know that victims of this power over, I mean, think about even children who are being sexually harmed. They actually oftentimes think the perpetrator is a good person, right? I mean, so what is it about? It's like people who are highly optimistic, people who are highly forgiving, are forgiven indiscretions more readily, people who just really try to fix, they're fixers. So you put someone like that in a relationship with someone who is going to continually push the boundaries. And then what we have is the perfect setup for this person to be perfect prey, because this person is going to keep working hard at it. They're going to keep trying. They're going to try to fix it. They're going to ask themselves, I always say this to attorneys, what's the difference between, a victim and an offender? Well, a victim asks, what could I do differently? What did I do wrong? How can I fix this? They're always wondering. They're afraid they did something wrong. And when they do one thing wrong, they do one thing wrong. I remember getting a call from my attorney. I had been in the house and he kept saying I was stealing things. I stole the flour, the sugar, and the brown sugar. I'm a baker. I stole 3 baking containers and all of I had a bin of baking things. He never baked. I didn't steal them. I took them. I wasn't supposed to take anything from the house, but I was not allowed to go to the house unless it was a Friday. It made no sense because these family court issues just do not make sense. But I went into the cabinet and I got out 4 hot cocoa mugs that my girlfriend had given me. And I got them out, and that's when I knew he had the camera in the house. He took a picture and he sent it to my attorney. And I felt so guilty, and that's exactly what he was hoping, right?
We talk in Prey versus Predator, we talk a lot about the predator's behavior falls outside your wheelhouse. You can't conceptualize using your own brain. Because you're so wired to be loving and kind and warm and, that type of thing. And this behavior is just so far removed from anything that you could even imagine.
I love that you said that, because I think that that is so spot on. This idea that if we don't operate in that way, it is so hard to imagine that others do.
Yeah.
Then add in that it's someone you love. I mean, there's such a cognitive dissonance from that. Though that is they do not connect.
You don't know what you don't know. And if you can't even imagine it, how can it be happening? Like it doesn't make any sense to your brain. What do you think about this idea? Like one of the things that we've talked about also is this idea that prey have a sort of please and appease response to trauma. And so when the coercive controller traumatizes them, their sort of natural trauma response, it's an involuntary response, how we respond to trauma generally. That a lot of times they are wired for that please and appease, that fawn piece. What do you think of that?
I think that that's certainly true in some circumstances, but I have an aversion to going there often, because I feel like that begins to be the conversation about self-esteem and codependency. Mm-hmm. And that is where a lot of people go, is that, you're too codependent in the relationship. And my question becomes, if the other person were healthy, would it be codependency or would it be symmetry? It would be symmetry.
Absolutely.
I need to write that down.
So I have a hard time with that. And I also, we have often said, oh, she must not believe in herself. Why did she stay? That's not accurate. I think, and it could be in some cases, of course it could be. But I think as we talked about earlier on, is there's a lot of prey. I'll use your words, right? There's a lot of prey that are strong, successful. This is not about someone who's broken, and I think that's the other tricky thing, is self-esteem is not a black and white thing. I mean, listen, self-esteem is certainly, a scale of sorts, and, a spectrum. And, but man, I could go to work and kick ass every day at work and do a really great job teaching my students and seeing my clients in my clinical practice, and then go home and be like, what's going on here? Oh, nothing's going on. It's okay. Everything's okay. So does that mean I had low self-worth? I don't think so. I think I blame him. I think he stripped me of my ability to know what I should know. That's not self-worth. That's someone doing something very harmful to another human being to diminish them. And therefore, I didn't know what I should know. And that's how I see it. And again, self-esteem might be in there, but it's not in there for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, we talk a lot about prey as, in fact, we kind of suggest that the predators look for prey who are super strong and independent. Is that your experience as well?
So I think the reality is coercive control happens in all socioeconomic demographics, right? And it can happen to any person. But the issue is that if you're able to control yourself and have a relatively successful persona outside of your family, right? Then you're not going to be someone who gets physical often. And therefore, you're not going to be someone who gets caught, right? So there are people who may exhibit coercive control, but they don't have enough to lose, in my opinion. They have less to lose, so they might actually be more physically abusive and therefore more readily caught. Not that we do anything once they're caught, but or we don't do enough once people are caught.
So I'm curious for you. You came out of this relationship from being abused. How did you go from getting out of the relationship to starting to develop a language for what you had been under for so many years? What was the process for you gaining the language to where you are now, sort of advocating?
Sure. So I had always wanted to get my doctorate. And I was very interested when I started my doctoral program in 2019. So I divorced in July 2019, and I started my doctoral program in September or August. And I was very interested in psychological abuse. That's what I was really focused on. What is psychological abuse? And then I came across Evan Stark's research, Dr. Lisa Fonte's book, Invisible Chains, and began again getting, like we've talked about the vernacular, like, right, changing it. It just creates a more fuller understanding, because psychological abuse is one piece of it. But these coercive controllers actually do all of the pieces, or virtually all. They may not sexually abuse, they may not use the children if there are no children, but they are certainly going to do whatever they can. Rosenfeld did a study, and what we know is these are people that are drawn towards conflict. So if you go to court,
oh yeah,
they're drawn, that's a stage for them. That's part of the characterological issues, right? They actually enjoy retaining control. And beyond enjoy it, if they don't have control, they feel so much shame. Their whole persona is built on having a false self, and a self, as you guys, I know, are aware, right? So this false self, the only way to retain it is to retain control. That is what fulfills me, that ability to be fed by other people. And so when someone decides to leave me, there is so much shame in that. You have just taken off my mask, they call it, right? You have just taken off my mask. I can't handle that. So I am going to do whatever I can to destroy you. Revenge is the number one thing. And how can I get revenge? Through family court, right? Or through financial abuse, or through use of the children. And it's a spectrum. I mean, I have clients who have significantly pathologized individuals and probably are not safe. And then I have others who, they're toying with the money in the bank and doing these types of things. Definitely still a coercive controller, but maybe a predator that's more low level, if there's such a thing.
So did your ex-husband try to stop you from telling your story?
So what's interesting is, so my children, I have COVID to actually thank. I know a lot of people went through some significant hardship with COVID, but because of COVID, my children came home. We had just divorced, and they came home, and they were going between our beautiful home that they had grown up in and that we had built, that I had no access to, and my small apartment. And he used to say, "Oh, you're going over to the shoebox," or, "Oh, you're going to see the sociopath."
oh,
And then what he had done towards the end for me is he started, when he didn't want me to leave it, he would turn off the electricity in the garage so I couldn't open the garage door. And he started doing that to my children, so they couldn't come visit me. And they started to recognize a pattern of, even if they were only coming for Sunday dinner, I'm Italian, Sunday dinner, pasta and meatballs. Even if they were only coming for that, he was disrupting that in some way, whether the keys would be missing. And then, of course, he told them that he was paying all of their college. He wasn't paying anything. He stopped paying the moment that I separated, which was 2017. And I went to the upstairs bedroom. He stopped putting any money in for my son's college and then my daughter's. So there were my son didn't believe me, right? My son said, "Mom, Dad says he's paying." Well, then I finally open up the computer. I call it, so we all know what the word gaslighting is, but with our children, of course, a protective parent would never maliciously gaslight them. But if you have grown up in a house your whole life, you're 17, 18, 19 years old, and your dad's been fun, not really made you do any chores, and, you'd watch TV with him and hang out with him. And mom was the one who, like, you got to get a job, or it's time, you've got to clean up your room, or please help me with the dishes, right? So there was always this diminishing of me in the home. And, but I just tried. I mean, we would argue about it, but I would just try to let it go. And, so when you grow up in a home like that, and as a mom, I was trying to keep the peace. I was trying to keep things together, right? I was trying to do the right things, fix things, right? Again, then aren't I in some ways disintegrating my children's intuition? I am, because intuition is something that we're all taught oftentimes to dismiss, oh, go sit on Uncle Johnny's lap. He just wants to give you a hug, right? Oh, you don't want to like run down that hallway in the ramp garage because that you might offend the guy who's getting out of his car, right? Like, or you get on an elevator and you feel a little uncomfortable, but you stay on anyway, right? So as a society, women in general are taught to dismiss their intuition. Children are taught to dismiss it. And I suggest that we actually teach them to not even integrate what they're feeling. They have a disintegration of their intuition, because that's what I did to my kids for years. So then what I ended up doing is going back to, how I think the question was, how did I come to this point? The kids came home. My son, I showed him how much I had paid out of the college how I had been the only one to pay. He still questioned it, but it was finding Dr. Stark's information, seeing my children experience coercive control by my ex. And he recognized that if he called me out on it, I'm so public that the truth would come out. I mean, I am public about it, but if he wants to take me to task, he's more than welcome to do that.
So has he ever threatened to take you to court over you telling your story?
No. He's told my children, your mother's saying these things about me and it's not true and everything, but no.
I want to go back to that concept of intuition disintegration. How hard was it for you to come up against this idea of, never say anything bad about the other parent, never do this, never do that. There's all these rules that probably make a ton of sense.
Especially in divorce or separation.
Yeah, when you're divorced or separated, there's this real push. And it's like you're a bad parent if you say anything negative about the other person. And yet, what I'm hearing you say is unless you offer some level of truth and clarity for your kids, you're actually damaging them, which seems like the exact opposite of kind of what you're sort of told culturally. So I want to park on that just for a moment and just kind of ask you, and how did you get the intuition or the clarity to do that despite all the pressure that's bad or wrong? Or can you tell me about that?
Sure. So I think, first of all, I wasn't engaged in family court, right? I was divorcing someone, but my children were 17 and 19. So I didn't have to worry about that. And I always tell people, of course, you have to worry about what the court might say. But here's the reality. If I said, my children came home and they said, Dad said that you don't pay college tuition. And I said, well, I'm sorry that you heard that.
Right.
That's not true. Now, if a court wants to take me to task for saying that, go for it, as far as I'm concerned. So we don't have to say something bad about the other parent. We don't have to diminish the other parent. What we have to do, and this is actually, I alluded that I have a protective parenting program. What I teach moms to do is we don't diminish him, but he is working 24/7 double time to diminish you. When your children are with him, that's his full-time job, double. I need you to work triple time to elevate you. How do we elevate you in the home? And so to your point, here I was a clinician. Here I was someone who was very familiar with pathologies, right? I had been teaching on the power and control wheel. I had been researching, like how to handle difficult people, right? And recognized that what I needed to do was, when my children came home and said, well, Dad says you're the sociopath, or when that happened, I couldn't be defensive. I couldn't be like, that's not true. He's a sociopath. Because the moment I did that, who did I sound like?
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I needed to sound different. And so I literally began acting like I was on stage in my home. Like I had to pretend not to be triggered by them. Oh, hard. And that meant diminishing or I shouldn't say diminishing, dismissing what they were saying in a way that I acknowledge it, but then it's done. Not true. Sorry you heard that. Not true. Really? Wow, interesting. Like really being like very cavalier about it. I shouldn't, I mean, I empathized with them, but I wouldn't allow it to. I always say that our children are sending us arrows. They want to see what sticks. They want to see which arrow penetrates. And we have to have armor on and let them all fall off, because if we don't, they're going to keep doing it. I mean, that's the other conversation. I mean, so my kids are coming home, they're repeating what he's saying. They're going there the whole time they're there. He is insidiously, covertly telling them BS about me. They have to come here and not have to deal with that. They're trauma victims. Like, how do I help them just be in the like come home, have chocolate chip cookies on the counter,
Safe place.
Safe place. But that meant that if they tried that arrow on me, I had better let it just fall.
Did you find that he would use your understanding? Like, who knows what his career is? I don't care to know, but he would use your expertise against you. Like, he would call you a sociopath because of your training. Would he start to like use that? Like, he almost knows that material as much as you do and use it against you?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that that's the difference, right? They can use whatever they want, but at the end of the day, when there's two people standing side by side, there's one person who's trying to harm the other person. And and I always say, like, I don't understand why, like, family court judges, if they took the time, it would be very clear. My ex used to go into court with that book. I forget who it's by, Eddie maybe, and it's the Divorcing the Narcissistic Borderline Personality Person. And he would go to court with that book and flip through it.
Really?
Yeah. So, and he is the school counselor.
Oh, okay.
I think the phrase that we've used numerous times is it's like bringing a butter knife to a gunfight, because for the prey, you are at essence a pretty honest, compassionate, empathetic person. So you don't do things like lie and try to destroy and try to demean and devalue. And even if you are angry and hate the person's guts, you're still not interested in destroying them. And yet they've got this bazooka of weaponry in their, the complete arsenal that they can attack you with, because they are willing to lie, to cheat, to deceive, to destroy. So we do have to have more language. We have to have more understanding, and hopefully it helps us to learn and grow and become even safer and even more aware for our kids. We were talking a little bit before about some of the work that you're doing really at the moment. Tell us what's next for you. Tell us a little bit about where you're going and what we can kind of glean from you going forward.
Sure. So there's so many victims and survivors that I'm hearing from that they aren't finding clinicians, therapists who actually understand coercive control. So that's a huge issue. And so my hope is to create, I'm actually it's just about created, I should say, and it's launching in March, but it will be a training for clinicians, so they can come to like a 2-day training so that they actually can get the real unpacking of what coercive control is, how it impacts children, et cetera. And then they can actually, if they wanted to, they can market themselves as clinicians who have been trained in this topic, because there is too much gaslighting by therapists, and these perpetrators or predators come into counseling, as I'm sure you know, and they do a great job of acting the part. Yeah, when they actually are being so harmful outside of that. And I think I think that's the thing about therapists. Oftentimes they're people who already come with this level of empathy, right? So they're trying to really fix it. Except you can't fix this. You cannot fix this. So there's no reason to fix it. That's when you say to a victim, you're in a domestically abusive relationship. He is coercively controlling you. We need to come up with a plan if you can leave. So,
well, and for you to be developing a program for therapists is so genius. I just imagine that there are so many people out there who have been marriage therapists for many, many years, maybe decades, and have never used the words coercive control or emotional abuse with their clients. And I think, if there are therapists out there listening, and you've had clients with marriage issues and you haven't been able to recognize coercive control behaviors, then you need this course. So how would they find you? How would they get this course from you?
sure. So they can get on my contact lists on my website. That's Coercive Control Consulting, or just look me up, which is a hard last name, Coccchiola. But I also, they can go to iknowyourheart.com because I created that link for protective moms because they know their children's hearts better than anybody.
Love that. Now, you said for protective moms, do you find that there's dads who are needing the course as well, or how do you handle that?
So I do understand that there are women who can certainly have characterological issues and can be harmful, absolutely, in relationships, and can certainly turn children against a protective parent, absolutely. The issue is that in general, most domestic violence is a gendered oppression in general. And so when I say gendered, I don't mean just against females, because it could be two gentlemen in a relationship, right? But it is based on one person having power over another person. We don't often see that with a woman having that power, that ability to have power over a man. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm saying it doesn't happen as significantly, right? So my particular programs I have the live programs are for protective moms right now because I have to create a really safe space for those. But that is why I am launching at the end of the month a self-study program. I have had dads reach out to me and they want to know how to help their children. And so they can participate in that. And then if they did want to have some one-on-one coaching, that's something that I would consider. The issue is, and I think you know this, and so for all the dads out there who have experienced this, I'm so sorry. But the issue is that even our statistics related to domestic violence are skewed because the reality is that offenders flip the narrative very frequently. And so I have multiple clients where, she goes to the DV agency for help and then he goes. He corners her and she pushes him and he calls the police and says she's abused me. Now that's not called reactive abuse. That's not called mutual abuse. That's called defense. That's what that's called. And so, this concept of DARVO, where perpetrators deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender, is really where a lot of our domestic violence statistics are from. And so, can there be male victims? Absolutely. Can there be male? There are the numbers for male victims in non-heterosexual relationships is high. There is a person who has a position of power over another person. So I think that's the long answer to your short question.
Well, we appreciate it for sure.
And I wish we could talk about DARVO more.
Well, I feel like we need to have you again.
Be amazing.
I'd be happy to talk about DARVO more. There's a lot to unpack there. That and betrayal trauma.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we want to thank you so much today for being here, being with us. I want to thank you on behalf of survivors and for people in these situations for the work that you're doing and the fact that you are dedicating your abilities and your skills and your empathy and your compassion and all your prey behaviors toward healing and growth. I appreciate it myself, and
It's wonderful.
Yeah, and I've learned a ton.
and we've written a lot of stuff down.
We're taking notes as we go along.
I
It's
know,
great.
this is so awesome. Definitely will be looking up the course that you are doing and looking forward to more from you. And we'd love to have you back anytime, and would love to just continue the conversation going forward.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you're doing. It takes all of us to be doing our part in order to shift this. I mean, I know we're ready to end, but we've had so many murders of women post-separation and their children in the last month, just in the last month. So it's definitely time.
Yeah. Well, let's get together for a part 2, and maybe we'll start with Darvo.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
C.
you, Dr. Cocchiola.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Real quick, we're also doing a draw where one of our listeners who leaves a rating and review will be entered to win a Visa gift card and a book about navigating this type of abuse. So anyone who leaves a rating and review, remember to do both or it won't count, anytime before March 31st will be entered to win a $50 gift card and will receive a book from our preferred reading list. So head on over now before you forget.